You're listening to Eating for Eden, episode 18. When it comes to doing something about climate change, your food choices matter. Thanks for tuning in to Eating for Eden, a podcast that takes a food-first approach to climate action. I'm your host, Jessica J. Schroeder, and I am passionate about food that tastes good and does good. I'll guide you with practical tips and help you thoroughly enjoy your food along the way. Before jumping into today's episode, I want to let you know that Eden and Me officially has a food blog. Head over to edenandme.com to browse a variety of recipes straight from yours truly. As we continue to chat about the ideas behind eating for planetary health, I want to equip you with delicious, healthy, plant-based recipes to move from idea to action. I hope you find some inspiration that gets you into the kitchen and seated at the table enjoying delightful meals shared with good company. Again, that's edenandme.com. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. Today, I'd like to talk about terminology. When it comes to what we eat and don't eat, we humans like our labels. They're clear-cut. They're definitive. They can provide a sense of belonging, a group where you fit, people with whom you share values. At some level, all of this makes sense. We crave clarity, and we all want to belong. So when we start to add or remove particular things that make us stick out among the general population, having a distinguishing word or phrase to use helps to normalize our experience. Not only that, but it can be helpful as a shorthand. One simple word or phrase can communicate a general dietary pattern. Labels can get us into trouble, though. Some are overly reductionistic or strict. Others remain rather unspecific, leading to a lack of consistent meaning. And interpersonally, they can be quite divisive. There's a sense of tribalism. Either you're in or you're out. Additionally, I find it interesting that many dietary labels describe what one is against or excluding. When this is the case, there's often significant lack of clarity about what someone is actually for. Back in episode 16, Dr. Alan Flanagan and I chatted a bit about the terminology plant-based. I'd like to pick up that thread here. But before getting into my own take on this term, I also think it's important to address the elephant in the room. What about the term vegan? Why don't I adopt, subscribe to, or even advocate using the term vegan for my approach? There are a few reasons. Let me briefly unpack them one at a time. First, we have to start with what vegan means. While the term has been adopted into the food world, it is far broader, describing a lifestyle. To be vegan is not just to eat a certain way, it is to hold certain morals and beliefs. One's dietary choices are then brought into alignment with that larger worldview. So more than simply avoiding the consumption of animal products, strict ethical vegans aim to avoid all animal suffering, particularly that which comes from treating animals as commodities. As such, vegans would avoid the use of leather in clothing, cars, and household items. They would avoid cosmetics that have been tested on animals or using sugar that has been processed using animal bone char, and so forth. On top of that is typically a level of commitment to advocacy or activism. I won't put all vegans in this bucket, but for many who would self-describe as vegan, not to be vegan is to be part of the problem. In my current understanding, it is a very clear-cut but very exclusive approach to life. To be clear, I'm not anti-vegan, and I too detest animal suffering. I simply wouldn't, at this point in time, align myself with this exact definition. Second, vegans are clear about what they are against. However, the term vegan, at least with regard to food, because that's what we're here to talk about, lacks clarity as to what it is for. By default, to exclude all animal products and byproducts is to be for plant-derived foods. However, it's completely possible to eat vegan and eat terribly. If you subsist on vegan packaged breakfast cereals, donuts, almond milk frappuccinos, and potato chips, you will not be healthy. There is not enough clarity about the quality of plant-derived foods to be consumed. Third, from a nutritional standpoint, We don't know that eating 100% plant-based is better than, say, 85% or 95%. I'll get into this a bit more in a few moments, but the point is, I haven't yet seen data to convince me that 100% plant exclusive, or as some would call vegan, is better than something like 85 to 99% plant predominant. Moreover, even if I was convinced 100% plant exclusive was the way to go, I'd probably prefer the term plant exclusive over vegan, unless I was choosing to describe a lifestyle beyond dietary choices. Please let me clarify before moving on. Avoiding use of the term vegan does not mean that I don't care about animal welfare. I certainly do. While I'm not strictly against, say, egg consumption, I have stopped purchasing eggs due to what I learned about the egg industry and what they do to male chicks. The realities of factory farming are horrendous, but I don't think the consumption of animals or animal byproducts is strictly ethically or morally wrong. I realize I may have just painted a target on my back, but there it is. My reasons for avoiding all of some kinds of animal products and severely limiting my intake of others are driven primarily by nutrition science, environmental concerns, and how animals are treated in farming and processing. Finally, I will add that the term vegan still leaves my mouth at times when I describe how I eat. In large part, that's because it's a term people recognize that, when it comes to food, clearly communicates the exclusion of animal products. For the small sliver of animal products I still do consume, it's on rare occasions and very selective with regard to source and quality. So instead of vegan, I prefer using the term plant-based. I realize, however, that this terminology is not without its difficulties. Similar to the plastering of the word natural across myriad food and household products, it's become a buzzword and means a variety of different things to different people. Again, as Alan and I discussed in episode 16, it isn't usually clear what exactly plant-based means when people just throw that term around. While for some it has come to mean plant exclusive, on the other side it can mean anything that has plants as the majority, which, depending on how you calculate percentages plus what foods are actually consumed, could still be a very unhealthy way to eat for both body and planet. Despite all this potential confusion, however, I think it can still be helpful to use the term plant-based so long as we adequately define our terms. So what do I mean by plant-based? First, when I say plant-based, I mean whole food plant-based. This means avoiding or severely limiting ultra-processed foods, and instead focusing on eating plant foods in their whole or minimally processed forms. Whole plant foods are just what they sound like: whole fruits and vegetables you'd find in the produce section of a grocery store, frozen berries, peas, and edamame, dried or canned legumes, rolled oats and whole grains, nuts and seeds. By minimally processed, I mean foods like hummus, tofu, and soy milk. Even nut butter fits this category. These are not rendered unhealthy simply because they've been blended or cooked to produce a product from its whole form. The processing of foods becomes unhealthy when fiber and nutrients are stripped away, and often additional empty calories like highly refined sugars and fats are added. Okay, so that was the whole food part of plant-based. Second, how much? What percentage of one's diet should come from whole and minimally processed plants to qualify as plant-based in my book? When I say plant-based, not only do I mean whole food plant-based, I also mean plant predominant up to plant exclusive. Plant predominant, for me, means 85% plant-based. And I get this figure from Simon Hill's book, The Proof is in the Plants. Plant exclusive, as the name suggests, is 100% plant-based. The reason for this up to 15% allowance is that, as Simon has said in his book and elsewhere, while science does support the superiority of eating a plant-predominant diet, we cannot say with certainty that that final 15% is best received from plants or not. We just don't have that fine-tuned of data. For some of you, this may be the best news you've heard all week. You may have been waiting for some stamp of approval to allow you to retain some Greek yogurt in your diet, or to enjoy a piece of pizza, a fillet of fish, or a few chicken wings on occasion. While some of us benefit from firm lines in the sand, meaning that having any animal products would drag you way below that 15% threshold, others of us can maintain a healthy balance of getting 85% or more of our foods from whole plants. Others of you may dislike the gray of this. You may want a black and white, this is good, this is bad kind of hook you can hang your hat on. While there is certainly a lot of data to support what foods are worst for environmental health and human health, rarely does such data lead to super clear-cut prescriptions for how to eat. But again, we can say that a diet comprised of 85% or more whole and minimally processed plant foods is the most beneficial for health. And as we've discussed over numerous past episodes, plants are by far the best choice for planetary health as well. What I'm driving toward here is a general, overarching pattern of eating that has some room for customization. Some folks will want to go plant exclusive. Maybe some of you listening already are or would like to. That's terrific. From a human health perspective, I would encourage you to assess how much of your food comes from whole plants or minimally processed sources versus highly processed commodities. Other folks who are listening are more interested in moving toward that direction of plant predominance. And if that's you, please hear me say both, wonderful, well done, I'm so glad that you're on this journey, and take it at a manageable pace. Don't try to calculate what 85% looks like and try to do it by next week. Well, if you're already at 75%, then maybe you can go for it. But if you're eating meat every day of the week, I encourage you to take the journey at a more incremental pace. Make changes that are sustainable and build upon them a bit at a time. The encouragement for all of us is to move in the direction of eating more whole plant foods, both for the health of the planet and for our own bodily health. No matter what terms you decide to use to describe how you eat, and maybe you want to adopt Brian Cateman's reducitarian terminology, I hope you place the greater emphasis on the action, not the talk. As always, start where you are, do what you can, and build from there. If you have questions or topics you'd like me to address here on Eating for Eden, I'd love to hear from you. Send an email to edenandme@substack.com. Also, if you've been enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving a review. It's a great way to help get these words out to others. And if you want recipes, check out edenandme.com, where you can find a variety of delicious, healthy recipes to bring what you've been learning here into the kitchen. Finally, become an emailed subscriber on Substack to have new podcast episodes delivered directly to your inbox. If you appreciate the work I'm doing and want to support the show, you'll have the option of becoming a paid subscriber. That's all for now, friends. Until next time, be well. Thanks for listening to Eating for Eden. If you found this episode informative or inspiring, please consider sharing it with a friend. Climate change is an issue we all need to tackle together, so let's invite others to journey along with us as we continue the conversation and start taking action. Until next week, friends, take care.